Hey there, Coach Faye here, author of Choreography of Awakening, founder and creator of Imagined Life and Imagined Life Path teacher. Today I'd like to pick up the topic of who are you? Why is it important to know? And what does it mean to grow in your divinity? I found so many people struggling today with really identifying who they are. As a matter of fact, I was one of those people. Obviously, if I wasn't one of those people, I wouldn't be so interested in this topic. And I found that we get really so confused about this who I am thing because it becomes associated with the status that we can acquire, and so people chase the status hoping that the status is going to actually give them that sense of identity, the sense of security, the sense of confidence that supposedly will come with it. And then when they achieve the status, at least those of us who achieve that status discover that we feel even more insecure, scared than ever before. Who am I? It's not an easy question, obviously, to answer because it can be answered in so many different ways. But those people who connect with that deep sense of identity within them, they actually have a huge advantage over those of us who don't. Imagine a small child who wants to become an athlete but can't find his sport. And for 10 years, this child is searching for different sports, and he tries soccer for a few months, and then he tries football for a few months, and then he tries baseball, basketball, gymnastics, swimming, etc. And he tries and tries and tries, but he never really settles for one and never excels at anything. So he gets to learn all these little different things about different things, but never really master anything. And then imagine someone like Mozart. His father recognized early on his talents, his gifts, and didn't just look at it as talents and gifts, but really gave Mozart his identity as a musician, as a composer. Each and every one of us came here on earth on a mission. Whether we know what this mission is all about or we don't, but we all are children of God that came here with a specific purpose. I remember when I was coaching figure skating still, and I was really searching for ways to help my students to become the best that they can be. And every single kid that I took on, I saw this huge potential within them. Sometimes my vision of them didn't particularly align with their vision of themselves. And I was struggling to find a way to motivate and inspire my students to fight for unleashing what I saw within them. And I tried to show them the videotapes, the DVDs of Olympic champions that this particular child would remind me of, that I could see, wow, you're like this and you can become this. And these children, they were resistant to take on my vision. Not all of them, some would go along, some of them would go along for a while, and it was a long road, and eventually they would fall out. And one day I received this amazing gift. I received the DVD of a 9-year-old boy who actually became an Olympic champion when he was 25. So he became an Olympic champion at 24, and I already knew that. But now I could show my children this video of the 9-year-old boy. And I could show the video of a 9-year-old boy to my 9-year-old student, and now they could relate. What I didn't realize was how this video, how this 9-year-old boy was going to change my own life. And what I saw in this 9-year-old boy, it shocked me. And what shocked me was that at 9 years old, he skated exactly the same as he did when he won the Olympics 15 years later. Yes, he was older, he was more mature, he could do much more difficult tricks, and yet something was exactly the same within this 9-year-old boy as it was within a 24-year-old man. And today this man is over 30, and he still possesses that exact same thing within him. And at that moment, as I watched that video, I realized that he didn't become an Olympic champion, he got to be recognized as one. And what that means is he always had this identity of himself that he just matured and developed over time, and that he contributed to it until it blossomed into what he became as an adult. And at first I was seeing that he was just being an Olympic champion when he was 9. I'm sure he was an Olympic champion when he was 6 and 5, and whenever he started skating, he was already an Olympic champion. Just like Mozart was already a world-class composer when he was a little child. But this little boy didn't say that he was an Olympic champion, he was saying that he was the king of ice. And as king of ice, he embodied that image so deeply that every single moment of his life, he lived, walked, and talked as the king of ice. And no matter what would happen to him, you couldn't shake that off, because that's who he was. So while many people are chasing some status and they hope that they're going to become invincible, they realize that they're fraud, then that's not who they are, and they're scared to be found out that they're still not good enough and unworthy. And they're trying so hard to protect the status that they have, and living in constant anxiety and fear and unfulfillment. He never had that experience because he knew who he was, and he didn't need to protect that. It's like, you know you're a man or a woman, and you don't need to protect and prove that to the world, because that's just who you are, and you know that. And so it became my mission to help my clients, my students, to discover and identify that thing within them, who they are, so that instead of keep on searching for it, you can actually daily keep working on it and developing it. Just like that little boy, Yevgeny Plushenko, he knew he was king of ice, and he didn't need to worry about discovering who he was. He just needed to keep developing his strength, his practice, to step in and own all of who he is. And so one of the reasons why I created Imagined Life, because to help people to really finally become crystal clear on who they are and begin building upon this identity every day, practicing it and embodying it, stepping into it more and more strongly. And that's exactly what it means, like what it means to grow in your divinity, because when we really truly recognize we are the divine beings within us, we are children of God, and we identify what exactly that means, and we realize that it's that high self, that best self that's sitting within me, and just identifying exactly what that looks like, and you start growing in being that. All of a sudden, you don't become it, you get to be recognized as it. And no longer you are going to be afraid to lose that identity, to lose that status, because it's not a status. That's the difference between the status and identity. The status is something that someone gives to you, and you know that in your soul that if someone gives you something, they can take it away. And then you live in constant fear and anxiety that something is going to happen, that the status is going to be taken away from you. But the identity, knowing inherently from the inside of you, knowing who you are, that can never be taken away from you. Even if you die with that identity, you die with it. And that is the greatest gift that you can truly give yourself. Instead of going out and chasing that status, you go out and you precisely identify who you are, and no longer you are chasing anything, you're actually living it, building it, and becoming stronger at it. It really goes hand in hand together with the things that we're saying, like chase your dream. No, stop chasing your dreams, live your dream. Stop chasing the status, live your identity. But define that identity. Define the identity that define that there are the weak parts in you and the strong parts in you. And when you strengthen the weak parts in you, that's when you can become all of who you are and more. Because most of us don't even know what this more means. We can only have this vision of more at the level where we are at. Like my students, they couldn't see themselves at 9 years old as Olympic champions because it was just too far, but they could see themselves, the best version of themselves, within like a next year or something. Like they could see this little goal that was attainable for them. And once they reached that goal, then they could see that next goal. And so the same thing happens in growing in your divinity. When you see this little step a little ahead of you, you can visualize, you can imagine that becomes your imagination of your higher self at the moment. You can only imagine as far as you can imagine, and then, it's just like you are standing in the valley and you can only see this far. So the same way, it's just you can only see this far with your physical eyes. You can only see this far with the eyes of your imagination. And when you grow in your consciousness, then all of a sudden you're able to see farther and farther. And the farther you're able to see, the more you grow in your divinity, and you can create more, and you raise up higher. And that's, my friends, is the gift. And if you truly want to experience who you are, and you want to grow in your divinity, and you actually understand what that means, and you understand the meaning of seek the kingdom of heaven, everything else will be added on to you. The kingdom of heaven is truly knowing who you are and owning and stepping into that divinity, and yes, everything else will be added on to you. And if you truly resonate with this message and you feel like this is time, it's my time to grow in my divinity, to know who I am and how to get, not even how to get there, how to experience and expand this I am that is within me. Send me a message, connect with me on Facebook, check my website, and I'm looking forward to be sharing with you soon. It's your time to grow in your divinity. Bye.